was loud and annoying. I spilled coffee on the floor. Gonna have to mop the floor now. For me. Good morning, Ivory Lady. Gemma. Good morning. Francie, Kitiku, Lucky Delgado. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's Page 2 News. Super Chat Cat. Good morning. Hope everyone had a terrific week. Sorry I'm a little late this morning. Was having issues trying to get the microphone to turn on. Some reason it kept on changing back to the default because I use an external microphone. You can't see it; it's just above the actual camera, like area of view. But oh well, first world problems, right? Had a good week. I'm going to circus tomorrow and I will record some footage. Well, good luck with that, sweetheart. Remember how they treat you when you did the Elvis, one. Don't want to run afoul of copyright protected material. Better late than never. That is true, Lucky. There's been an awful lot of people that, if you follow YouTube creator insight on, a lot of people have been tagged recently for copyright infringement by companies and by YouTube's own algorithm and features, because it says that even their own music is copyright protected and it belongs to somebody else. But a lot of people have been. That's the algorithm for you. When you live in a world where a computer is supposed to, detect, if something that you're doing belongs to somebody else, and then they flag it, and you lose monetization for that video, or it's for your channel, could be. But just be careful. Yeah, I'll be careful. I will take plenty of pictures as well. There you go. Still photos are a lot easier. All right, let's get page 2 news going, ladies and gentlemen. This is page 2 news. This is the 295th edition. Maybe. Now with 5% more YouTube's ads and less Epstein files. Well, it'll eventually load the next one. There we go. Viewer warning. This channel discusses real crimes involving real victims, real investigations, and real consequences. The cases covered may include violence and disturbing details and topics that are not suitable for all audiences and everyone. Viewer discretion is advised. Dark humor may be present, but let's be clear, the crimes themselves are not the entertainment, and the victims are never the punchline. If you're here for facts, content, and uncomfortable truths, welcome. If you're here to romanticize criminals, argue in bad faith, or get offended by reality, this may not be the channel for you. Viewer discretion is advised, common sense is required, and keyboard courage will not be rewarded. Please never forget the party that told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command. That is a line from George Orwell's 1984. The same thing can be said of Adolf Hitler in 1939, when the international community asked him in 1939, "What are you doing with the Jews and the gypsies in your country?" He said, "He's rounding up the criminals and those troublemakers." Wow, where have we ever heard that before? And he assumed that some of them were good and he was going to leave them alone. But we all know exactly what happened there. Today, we are talking about Nancy Guthrie's the kidnapping and abduction. This is the 21st day of the kidnapping and abduction of Nancy Guthrie. The reward now stands at $2,500. That is Nancy and her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, the co-host of the Today Show on your left. The photo on your right is fake of the reported kidnapper, abductor, leading Nancy Guthrie out of the home in street clothes. That photo has been widely circulated on the internet as real. It is 100% fake, made with AI, and you can tell from the very far right photo there, the gun is actually upside down and still in the holster, along with the one in the middle. My investigation into this case, I said that the person would be between 5'9" and 110 pounds, slightly built, 180 to 195 pounds, with the size 10 to 10 and a half shoe, wearing a Zod or Zod backpack sold online from an older product line. Black gloves would account for nothing. Each house would be searched again only after media had arrived. If you haven't watched any of the media coverage of this case, it's very clear that they're doing a lot of it to the guy, and to it's being staged and presented to you like they are doing something actively. They're doing a lot behind the scenes. Don't get me wrong. It's just when they go to serve a search warrant on a house at 9 o'clock at night, like they did last week, and they block off the road and they set up a media area next to where that blocked off road is, and tells the media before they get there, we have a spot over here saved just for you. You know that they're thinking about the media and how it's going to be presented, to the nation. before they're really worried about what they're doing. No one serves a search warrant and then thinks about the media. How's the media going to, be presented? Where are they going to be at? Where are they going to get the best angle at? But they are in this case. What did I get wrong? The media, through the investigation, the Pima County Sheriff's Department released that the backpack is actually made by Ozark Trail, not Zod or Zode, that is sold on Amazon and Temu. I'm still not sold on that because regardless of how many searches in different product lines of Ozark Trail backpacks that I've looked at, and my friends have helped me, find, and pictures of, past product lines, we can't find this Ozark Trail backpack exactly. We can find the ones that are similar, but you can find similar backpacks that have that reflective strap on them on a lot of different product lines, not just Ozark Trail. And we can't find anything else in the video or still photos that says that it's an Ozark Trail backpack. So I'm not sold on it. So we'll cross off the Zod or Zode backpack. Let's roll with it anyways. Everything else that I found about the person's height, weight, shoe size, black gloves, and searching of the house, everything else so far has been true. Good morning, Mustard Chief and Gala. Good morning. You can briefly look through the list here if you want. These are all the different locations within a 10-mile area of Nancy Guthrie's home that sell knit ski masks. Likewise, you can read through the list here for all the different places that sell black latex gloves. Why are they so popular? Because it's the most popular color. That and light blue are the most popular colors for latex gloves. Any truth to Nancy Guthrie is kidnapped and taken to Mexico? The DNA found in the house is at least 2 unknown people. Or the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie may be related to Savannah's investigative work at KVOA Channel 4. Moved to Mexico, the FBI stated they have no information or tips that Nancy was trafficked across the border. In fact, they checked all border crossings from US to Mexico. Each and every border crossing lane has 5 cameras, and at no point did Nancy Guthrie hand over her identification or anyone else hand over her identification that she was crossing into Mexico. It doesn't mean that she wasn't hidden, though, and told to be silent. Additionally, did you know that the FBI has 2 field offices that are across in Mexico, across from the US border, at the 2 main ports of exit and entry? The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Office has received over 70,000 tips so far, with 33,000 coming in just since the video and photos were released. The FBI has been in contact with law enforcement in Mexico since they arrived on the case, opposite to what the local media has portrayed. A lot of media outlets have been, saying, look, they haven't talked to anyone in Mexico yet. Why haven't they, investigated this? Let's go over to Mexico and see what we can find. It's not true. Since the moment they got there, the FBI has been in contact with every law enforcement agency in every state around them and Mexico. The FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Office stated twice in press releases and news conferences that they have collected multiple DNA samples from inside the house. And that's it. That's as far as their statement has gone. They never said anywhere in any statement that I can find online where they said there are only two, DNA profiles that they found in the home. They've only said that they've collected multiple DNA samples from inside the house. They've never said that it was blood. They never said that it was else. To what and how they may have collected that actual DNA sample. Local media and national outlets want you to believe three things about the investigation to this point. One, that the FBI and the sheriff are fighting with each other over who is in charge and what labs to use. The Quantico, Virginia lab with the FBI is backlogged, and everyone who has another case in another jurisdiction that is waiting on things to be done with the Quantico, Virginia lab knows that and will attest to that. But oddly, the media hasn't gone out and asked anybody, hey, you have a high profile case here and your information with the FBI was sent to Quantico. Did you get that information back yet? Oh, you have to wait up to a week before you get it? Oh, wait a minute. Well, I wonder if they could send this DNA evidence to another lab in the an investigation for Nancy Guthrie. Oh, they did, and they got it back within 48 hours. Oh, I wonder if that's why they used it. See, but they want people to believe that they're fighting with each other. Two, that the sheriff has bungled the investigation so far. A lot of people are playing armchair too soon. Multiple people made mistakes, and when looking at the house and investigating the inside. They've waited too long to get the federal law enforcement, the FBI involved in this. They waited too long to get border security involved. Yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. But trying to, hint that the sheriff's department has bungled the investigation. And number three, that the FBI should have been in charge from the start. That's not how it works unless there is proof that Nancy Guthrie was taken over the border, making it an interstate issue. There's no way that the FBI could have got involved with it right away. Now that may be completely different if it was an abduction of a child, but of an adult, if the first 48 hours, the investigation, they had information that she was, removed from Arizona to New Mexico or Texas or to Colorado, then the FBI definitely would have had jurisdiction and they would have taken over and been the lead. But right now, it's the sheriff, then the FBI in that order. The FBI is helping with the Pima Police Department's and Sheriff's Department's investigation. Is the kidnapping related to investigative journalism Savannah did with KVOA Channel 4 Arizona before she left for national station and eventually the Today Show? The answer is Savannah was not an investigative journalist. She was a beat reporter and on-air desk jockey, i.e. an on-air personality. What reporting she did on the scene was just that. Hey, look at me. This behind me is what happened. Look over there. Like you would see at any car accident with a reporter and a microphone and a camera. It's one individual. There isn't even somebody running that is additional. It's one person. They have a van, they have a camera, they have extra batteries, microphones, cords, and they send that person out. If they don't have a van, they have a car, and it's just one person go out. Here's an accident on 24th in Crenshaw. Go out there and do a report on this tragic car accident, and they send them out, and then they go live or they talk back to somebody who was in the studio. That's all Savannah did. Pima County Sheriff's confirmed to the family in Channel 3, no gloves were found inside the home. There have been multiple gloves, over 6 dozen, that were found within a 2-mile radius. You spread that radius out even farther than 2 miles of the home. Now you're up to 14 dozen gloves that have been found and recovered. You know how long it would take to do a DNA profile on 14 dozen gloves? And in the meantime, the media is going to latch onto that and say that it's taking too long. These things take time. No gloves were found on the property of Nikki or Tommaso either. Video showing sheriff's office picking up gloves was of them picking up their own used gloves, again from searching the septic tank. Yucky. Some of the gloves, yes, plural, were found as far away as up to 10 miles from the home, and they've collected them and cataloged them in this case. Gloves. The glove that was entered into CODIS. Neither the FBI nor the Pima County Sheriff's Office has said what was collected from the glove. Did they get a complete profile? Was there anything else collected from the glove? Did they get a complete profile from the glove? We don't know. It could have been a partial. It could have been a degraded sample. We don't know. How many cells were collected? Was it 7 or 13,000? Match used to be 13, but here recently we have been able to find a profile and make a genealogical hit with as few as 7 cells. 7, yeah. That's how much technology has advanced. We went from you used to have to need 13,000 to make a positive match. Now you need as little as 7 cells. And to give that reference to you, that is that 7 cells can be found from as small as a grain of droplet of blood or a skin to that's how small of a sample you actually need. What happened to the glove that is famously been portrayed across the media and newspapers that the New Yorker photographer for the New Yorker photograph, which is a complete black latex glove in a sagebrush bush? That's not the glove that was sent to the laboratory in Florida. What happened to that glove? Is that just one of the 14 dozen that is in the inventory right now? Next question and thing that if they have not answered on is, how old was the glove? Was the glove deteriorated to the point where the latex is starting to fall apart? We don't know. Was there any blood found on the glove? We heard that, just in the last couple of days, that there was a latex glove that was found in someone who lives in a community, and they said that they found blood on the glove itself and that the blood was dried. We don't know that, nor do we know if they got DNA, from the blood that was supposedly found on this glove. We don't even know if that glove is real. It could have been something that somebody planted later on so they can say, hey, I found this glove, so they can get their 15 seconds of fame. It could be cow blood, chicken blood. It could be if the glove is real and if it does even go to this investigation. And that's one of the things you have to realize is there are people who are going to start planting things and putting things in areas and calling in tips for things that are not related, and all they want is that no seconds of fame. They want to be connected to this case and somehow. Was there more than one profile that was found from the glove that they did send to the laboratory in Florida? We don't know. Does the latex glove have a stamped lot number on it? Back to me. This is a blue latex glove. Not blue nitrile glove. not powdered, just regular nitrile glove. Right here on the band, right here, where my finger is pointing right here, okay? If you unroll certain gloves, like this one here, this is a medical glove from a medical facility. If you unroll this little rubber that normally rolls over itself to make it easier to get your hand in, right here at the cuff, so this would be either inside or outside because obviously they're either way, but on one side, in the actual latex itself, I don't know if this is going to pick it up on camera. I'm going to try to hold it up here. All right, let's stretch it open. You can't see that. Well, it's right here where my finger's moving. On the action, it has a lot number. This glove came out of a box that is lot number 1117. So a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these latex gloves do have a number, and they can be traced back to a box that they came out of. And now then the company can go back and through or inventory and go, oh, lot 1117 was sold to this place right here, and they can pinpoint where that is. That could be a way to trace the glove additionally, but we don't know that because the sheriff nor the FBI has actually commented on that. Not all gloves, by the way, I should reiterate, add that to it. Not all gloves have lot numbers. I went to Harbor Freight Tools to see if they had latex gloves, and they do. They had black, purple, dark blue, and clear. And I could not find a lot number on the box, and so I'm going to assume that they don't have a lot number for, impressed on the gloves themselves. So Mexico, or second person. The idea of a second kidnapper has always been possible. Something, in fact, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff has never commented on or shot down. Could she be in Mexico or have gotten her medication there? Slight possibility that cannot be ruled out by anyone. To report that it is fact would not only be disingenuous, it would border on incompetent, like Newsmax has done. So in case you haven't followed the Newsmax or other channels who have taken their story and their idea and run with it, what that Newsmax did was they went to Mexico across the border with a reporter, a photographer, a videographer, a sound man. So the four of them went across the border into Mexico and started asking people on the street, have you heard of the Nancy Guthrie case? And they're like, no, who's that? And then they went into a pharmacy and they said, we want to buy these drugs. They're guessing. They're totally guessing at what drugs Nancy Guthrie may have been taking. They don't know. HIPAA regulations here in America, they're not going to release, Nancy Guthrie's medical records and say, these are the 3 medications that she's on or the 9 medications that she was on. We don't know. But we know the likelihood is that she was on some type of blood thinner. So they went into a pharmacy and they asked them to sell them these medications. There in Mexico, it's a lot easier to get a prescription for non-narcotic medication than you may need a prescription for a reputable pharmacy to sell you narcotics. But you can go in and get non-narcotics a lot easier than here in America, where if you need say like an antifungal, or you need a cream that may be restricted here in America, you can just walk into a pharmacy and pick it up in Mexico. But yeah, they showed that yes, you could possibly pick up these prescriptions if they're the ones that she might be on in Mexico. Again, Newsmax did the story originally, so we have to give them credit at least for that. But it does border on disingenuous, and incompetent to report that, if she was taken over into Mexico, that the kidnappers could get this, the medications to keep her alive and well. But only if she's on those medications again. But since then, several other news outlets, including ABC, CBS, have both reported on aspects of what Newsmax have reported. Because that's where we're at in this world, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have your own investigative or journalist, go find something else to steal from somebody else and report it as your own. And you can bet your last dollar that the information that I've been bringing to you guys for the last 3 weeks here on these streams is being taken by other people and reporting it on their channel as their information and their investigations. I've seen it every single week, and I don't care. Nor am I going to call them out on it, because they know at the end of the day, when they lay their head down on their pillow and they close their eyes, they stole their content. So hey, I know I didn't. Well aware of that, and I can sleep well. Day 21, that is today. The probability of a safe and live recovery decreases with each passing day. This concern is heightened by the fact that the individual or individuals responsible for the kidnapping have not communicated with the FBI or the Pima County Sheriff's Office since the second day of the incident. The 3 subsequent letters, not excluding, 3 letters excluding additionally the one of the fake ransom. Letters were not from the actual perpetrator or perpetrators seeking Bitcoin in exchange for identifying another party. As beginning of the week 3, statistical projections indicate the likelihood of successful recovery with the victim alive has declined to approximately 14% chance that Nancy Guthrie is alive and well. Again, there have been no communication with the supposed kidnappers since day 2. That original ransom letter, if that letter is real. We have no basis other than a couple of clues from the outside of the home that are supposedly in that letter that says that they may be real. Everything else could be fake. The letter could be fake. All of it could be a ruse. We don't know. But at this point, that's what we have to go with, is that letter was from somebody who took Nancy Guthrie. The other letters, again, are from somebody who has sent them out to media outlets and said, I want 1 Bitcoin and I will turn this person in. Bitcoin, as of this morning at 6 a.m., 1 Bitcoin is going for approximately $67,000. And it is the average price for Bitcoin as I started this show this morning. You can collect $200,000 by turning the individual in, and that is tax-free. $200,000. If you get 1 Bitcoin, regardless if you have a criminal record, because it wouldn't matter either way if you have a criminal record, as long as you weren't involved, you could collect a hell of a lot more by collecting the actual reward from the FBI and from Crime Stoppers than you would ever get by getting that 1 Bitcoin. So the odds are even stronger that whoever this is that keeps on writing to media outlets and saying, put a 1 Bitcoin in my, my crypto wallet, that person is just blowing smoke up the law enforcement behinds. Media coverage. Nancy Guthrie kidnapping probe may see reduced, scaled back, the resources scaled back as leads come up empty. Sources within law enforcement. And by sources, I'm talking about retired law enforcement officers with the FBI, Department of Justice, the Sheriff's Department, State Patrol, those who I've reached out to. As this investigation goes on even further, they're going to start scaling back as nothing comes to fruition. If it doesn't look like we need 24 hours a day, 3,000 people on the ground investigating, they're going to start scaling that investigation back and the amount of resources that they put towards it, and then put them onto other cases that are active and ongoing across the nation. We have already seen national news outlets pull 100% of their resources from investigation, where when they investigate, 15, 20 people show up for a news conference, reporters, news stations. Now they're getting about 7 to 9. So about almost 50% of them have already left. And they're relying on those who are going to stick on the ground, the people who are working for the Associated Press, Newsmax, Fox, and the ABC affiliate, Channel 4 out of is the name of the channel, but they're Channel 4 News. They're going to stick around because they're right there, based right there in Tucson. So it's not like they have to go anywhere. Like, where Al Jazeera was there for the first 19 days, they're gone now because there's nothing that's going to keep Al Jazeera's interest. Same thing with the Wall Street Journal, the New Yorker, the Seattle Times. All those reporters are all gone because they don't have an affiliate there. They can rely upon their sister stations or the Associated Press for coverage. Facts. We live in a society that is ruled by the algorithm. That I can't stress that enough. The algorithm is in control of all the media you see and read and take in. I don't care where you get it from. Radio, television, the internet, Facebook. Shouldn't take any news from Facebook, but people do. Instagram, TikTok, wherever. It's all controlled by the algorithm. Why? Is because we live in a society with a short attention span theater, as I call it. Short attention span theater. Give me 100% of the facts, and I want to know the nuances of the case, and you better give it to me in 60 seconds or less, or I'm turning you off and I'm going to somebody else who's going to put explosions, a dead dog on the freeway in the background, along with giving me the facts in that 60 seconds. That's what we demand. Now, that's not everyone, but that is a vast majority of the world we live in right now. We want everything right now and today in 60 seconds. And again, look no further than right here that for this channel, for how many people are here watching right now versus when I started. Not just on YouTube, I'm streaming to 3 different sites. I am on Facebook right now, live. I am on YouTube right now, live. And I am on Discord right now, live. And right now, we have lost about 50%, almost 60% of the total people who tuned in because I did not give you everything in the first 60 seconds. That's the world we live in. And I hate to break the bad news to you, but that's the truth. Additionally, 500,000 people were reported missing last year in the U.S. According to the FBI, between June 2020 and June of 2025, women comprised of more than 75% of the victims, those who disappeared. And when they used the word victim, they disappeared because they were at the hands of someone else. Either someone else made them disappear, or they disappeared fleeing, getting away from someone else who was abusive, controlling, or whatever. But 75% were female. Most fall between the ages of 20 and 39, with only 13 cases of an adult being kidnapped. that happened during that time span of 5 years, with 6 cases known to the FBI and the Department of Justice of those being over the age of 70. 3 of them were held for ransom, according to FBI crime data. Of those other 3 cases, so you have 6 over the age of 70, 3 of them were held captive in ransom by their own family members. They did it for financial reasons. They either took an elderly individual out of their home and said, "Give me money, or give me whatever, or I'm not going to bring them back." Or they held them captive in their home or some other place. But 3 additional ransom demands letters were handed out, in that 5-year period for seniors. The FBI's own data, along with Interpol data, though, on kidnapping and ransom, are not complete. Excuse me. As they account for only data were cases where they were called in on it to help, with some statistics pointing to as many as 75 to 85% of the cases of kidnapping and ransom were never reported to the FBI. Not all kidnappings are ransom, and not all, and they're not all seniors. Again, the most popular kidnappings are of children and teenagers under the age of 20, and they are custody disputes between 2 parents. It's not necessarily that the 2 parents take them. It may be the uncle of one side over the other takes the child and kidnaps the child to get back at the other parent on the other side. Or likewise, insert any relative from one side or the other. It could be a grandmother, uncle, niece, nephew who takes the child. It's not necessarily just the parents themselves. That's all I have for today on the Nancy Guthrie case. I am still following along and researching information as it comes in. You can't take everything for as the honest truth for what's being reported out there. Good morning, Mel. Good morning, Rackard. The algorithm isn't on public media, or am I wrong? Like NPR, National Public Radio, they use the algorithm too, Francie. When they decide what stories to cover with their limited resources, in particularly since Trump cut so much of the money away from NPR and from the National Public Broadcasting. Now we're good until 2026, the end of 2026, because the Canadian Broadcast Association stepped in and gave a grant to NPR to keep NPR on the air, because he was trying to take them off the air because they said some unflattering things about him in his 2026, presidential campaign and time in office. Not the last one, but the first time around. So, hey, if they rely upon, public, money, let's just take away what we give them, which decimated radio stations across the nation who report on local, news in smaller communities where they don't have a television or station or a newspaper. They rely upon NPR to not only broadcast the news, but the weather, the farm reports, and so on in their local smaller communities. Well, those stations were down to in some places, one person. And then they took away all that money, and that person's gone now. They went dark. But the Canadian Broadcast Association gave money to keep NPR on the air through 2026. So they can now do fundraising to keep everything going as it was. So they will not have any more federal grant money because obviously while Trump is in office, he's not going to give it back. I'm not slamming on the man. He did what he did because he wants to, just like he went after, other stations, main broadcasters, late night talk show hosts and stuff like that, telling them that they're fake news and they need to be taken off the air. And then he got his buddy over at the FCC to, say, we're going to take away your license if you don't take this person off the air, if you don't, censor them. It's not him doing it by his own hands, is my point. He's getting other people who are below him to do his dirty work for him. And that way, the one political party can say, he didn't do it. It wasn't him. It was him. So, but that's the world we live in. I mean, I hate to break the bad news to you, but that's the world we live in. Short attention span theater and using the algorithm AI is everywhere. I know Reichardt hates AI. Hooray for Canada, right? They stepped in other ways too to help out a lot of other industries and places. They didn't have to, but they wanted to, because you have to understand, especially along the border with United States and Canada, there isn't the giant wall there that you can see that says, look, that person across the street is not, the same as me. They're an American. We're a Canadian. We're not going to tell them what's going on in the news. NPR has a huge reach, especially along the United States Canadian border, that help report the news that happen in that area of Canada. So it's very beneficial for them to make sure NPR stays on the airwaves. AI is dangerous. Yeah, it is. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And I see no way at all that it's ever going to get any better. Will, can I join your Discord? If so, could you send me an invite? I'll do that after this, Kitty Q. I drove through Tucson, Arizona yesterday. The highways are all over country are disgusting. Potholes everywhere. Highways department is not being funded either. They can't fix the highways. Pathetic. I am truly sorry, Reichardt. That's one of the reasons why my sister, she didn't work for the Department of Transportation in Arizona. She worked for the Department of Transportation in Colorado. 25 years she was with them, but because they did so many cutbacks and they weren't putting their money where it needed to be on certain highways and infrastructure, that's why my sister left. The Colorado Bureau of Transportation. She now works for the United States Post Office. She's in management. She's not down on the ground delivering mail. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You love America, Mel? I don't know why, the administration decided to pick a fight with Canada of all places. I don't know. It's mind-boggling if you think about it. AI has taken a lot of jobs from programmers also. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is, Reichardt. I just read the jobs report, which should scare the living shit out of a lot of people. The national jobs report. I think there was like 33,000 people lost their jobs last month or last quarter. In America, that goes from December to now. And their jobs were cut because of AI. AI has outsourced them. They've already done all their job, the programming. They made the programming and they put the AI in place, and it took. Well, we don't need you now. AI is learning for itself. Yeah. I have great American friends, Will. Well, good. Well, I have great friends in Canada. Canadian. I don't like your guys' money, the actual paper money. I mean, I think it looks like monopoly money, but you probably think the same thing about our money too. But I mean, I have nothing against Canada. I've been to Canada a lot of times on vacation. You love America. A lot of your subscribers come from America, Gemma. Well, that's cool. I haven't looked at what my where my subscribers are from lately. Probably been a couple of months. I should probably look at that. Because on YouTube in your dashboard, it actually tells you, breaks down like, percentage wise where your subscribers, are coming from, your views are coming from. I know the largest amount of Asian Pacific, viewers for me are coming from the Philippines, which is kind of cool. I know that part because I hear from them every once in a while. I think a lot of them are still learning English. It's definitely a second language. Tagalog would be their first language. I'm going to assume, but with a few exceptions, I get along, and I would hope that our country would get along with everybody. But yeah, it's the world we live in now. All any of us can really do is just make the best of it. You want real change, you got to start at the ground level where you can actually make an immediate change, in your province, your school board, at the ground level. That's where you're going to make an actual real change. Your city council, and then moving up from there, your, representatives from there. If you don't start there, you're never going to get change in this world. Look, I can pour coffee without spilling it. Gonna have to mop the floor. Spilled coffee earlier when I poured the last cup. Love all the world, Rockhart. Well, Rockhart, your job depends upon, open and free trade. I mean, if we don't have open borders and we're not trading things from across the borders, kind of hard for you to haul a lot of stuff, I would assume. But then again, you said that everything you haul is on a flatbed. So in my mind, the only thing I can think of that you probably, steel, maybe totes. I don't know if you have a chemical endorsement or not. But I mean, you still trade has to be involved somewhere along the lines for that stuff. Okay, before I forget, listen up. For anybody who is going to be here tomorrow for trivia night, hot off the press, trivia night Sunday. Right here in my hand is the information for tomorrow night's trivia. Tomorrow night's trivia is on Robert Hansen. Robert Hansen is tomorrow night's trivia. 100% flatbed hauler. Well, rumor is that Savannah Guthrie said she will never return to Today's Show. I read a little bit about that. The likelihood of her returning to a national broadcast, not just the Today Show, Francie, is the likelihood is that she'll never go back to a national syndicated national show. Um, and I can understand that. Let's just hypothetically say that they do find her mother alive tomorrow. I think that her and her husband Mark, I think the both of them are financially secure enough that they could relocate back to Tucson and stay there, and probably make sure that the remainder of Nancy's life is she's able to spend with. She could live another 20 years. We don't know, but I did see something about that. And she feels it's her fault. That's grief. That's grief right there for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd almost guarantee that what has happened to her mother is not related to Savannah. It's not related to Nikki. It's not related to Tommaso. It's not related to Mike at all. I can almost guarantee it's not. I think this is something completely that is unrelated to them. I still think that the person that took her is um, familiar with the area. I think there's a good chance that the person knew the ins and outs and how to get in and out of the house or the area, where to park, where not to park. And I don't think that the person worked alone to do this. I can't prove that. Can't prove any of it. That's just my feeling itself, that it's not connected to the family. And now I've been saying that since before the FBI cleared, the family and their spouses. I really thought that this was not connected to them at all. But it would be pure grief on her end. You know, I mean, it's like I've heard things that are similar to that. A child dies in a tragic accident, and a parent assumes immediately that if they would have done something different, if they would have been there, that it's their fault. I can totally understand it and see it from her perspective and how she feels that way. But it's not. It's not her fault. I mean, hindsight, I guess, maybe. I don't know what you call it, intuition. And you think, oh, if I was there, I could have stopped this. I could have prevented that. If we would have just had her stay the house night at my sister's house, and as opposed to her going home. There are a lot of good people in Tucson. My godparents are buried there. My godparents. They moved from Wisconsin to Tucson. I was probably 13, 14, right in there. Now my godmother had muscular sclerosis, and the heat actually did help, somewhat with her MS. And so, but they relocated to Tucson. And as a kid, though, this is how dumb I am. I always thought that they relocated to Old Tucson, which is basically a theme park show, OK Corral kind of shit. But yeah, obviously it's Tucson. Nobody, relocates to Old Tucson. But anyways, but both of my godparents are both buried there. Been there an awful lot in my life. A very nice place, and like you said, right, Cart, there are some really great people there, and a lot of people who live in and around in the city of Tucson, all the way to Mesa and everywhere else. People who live in Canada. This case is shaking a lot of people because it really makes you wonder and self-doubt, about your security. How safe are you in your own home? and particularly the people who live in and around Nancy's house, could they be next? Could the person who took Nancy have been watching them and was going to take them? They don't know. These are the kind of things that they tumble around in your mind, and take up room, that it's got to drive those people nuts. And you will see, after this case is concluded, and hopefully it's concluded with Nancy being returned alive, you will see in short order afterwards, this summer, quite a few homes in and around Nancy's home there will go up for sale. Guarantee it. It happens every time a high profile case happens. Look what happened in Colorado after Christopher Watts, killed, his wife and children. People in his actual area, neighbors near him, people on the other block over, people just did not want to be associated with that area anymore. And even in something like that, who the perpetrator was, who the victims were, but they didn't want people, they want to be associated with that area. So they moved. And people are going to pick up and move and get out of that, maybe that area of Tucson and move to another, community, maybe move behind a gated, community wall where no one can get in unless they get past security at the gate. You'll see it. Is there any updates about your missing brother, if you don't mind me asking, Will? No. At least nothing credible, Gemma. I actually took that off of the trivia night. I took it off of trivia night completely because I was speaking with not me directly. I spoke a little bit to him, but we have a contact with the Department of Missing People from the state of Wisconsin, and there were quite a few bogus tips that were called in or left on their site. It's the same shit we've been getting for years. Long lost, our long lost brother is the father of XYZ. They're the child of that child, so they're the nieces, nephews, or whatever. And they're hard up, and they have information on what happened to him. Why don't I just, in the family, just give them money? It's like a ransom, but a ransom instead of a person. It's a ransom for information. We know approximately where he was. We know what he did for a living because we have the report from the Social Security Administration. We know his number. We just don't know where he's gone in the last decade. So he's out there, or he was. Could be dead now, but he's not listed in any death database. One of your aunts and uncles lives there in Tucson. They're also buried there. I forget the name of the cemetery. I'd have to look it up, Reichart, where my godparents are. They're buried at. I mean, I know how to get there from their old house. It's not, oddly, it's less, where they're buried is less than a mile from where they were actually, where they lived. So, and it's pretty easy to find, find their house. I know it. I haven't been there in, I don't know, 20 years, but I know where the house is. And once I find the house, I know exactly how to get to the cemetery. Fortunately, and I don't want to sound pessimistic, I think the poor Nancy Guthrie is no longer with us, if you know what I mean. Oh, I know exactly what you mean, Mel. And I put that prediction in, and said that myself, not last week and the week before. I don't think that she was alive after day 7. I think that was the maximum, because I'm looking at the medical side of it myself. That and the kidnapper never responded back. There's so many things that I think that are just like, oh shit, moments that happen within the first 7 days. That, yes, unfortunately, I don't think Nancy's with us either, and I hope and I pray that I am 100% wrong. I hope that somebody's got her, held up in the Hyatt Regency, and she's able to watch, television, and and groom herself, and order room service. I'm hoping that that's the situation at hand here, something like that. But I highly doubt it. But I hope that that's what's going on, and that she's not being kept in someone's garage someplace, or in a cave mine, which is very interesting. And I actually saw someone do a live stream, and I watched about it, the first hour of it, the other night. Do you know how many abandoned mines there are in and around Tucson and Mesa, Arizona? There are over 107. It's like 107, 110, but they count them as individual mines. But there are a couple that actually connect. So there are multiple entrances to one mine, but they only count that as one mine, even though they're more than that. These are not just ones into a mountain; they're ones that go straight down, and then they're different corridors and stuff like that underground. I'm not a miner. I don't know what they call it. Do they call them corridors? I don't know. A lot of mines, though. A lot of them have been covered over, so no one's gonna fall in them. We're not gonna have like the baby that fell down the well, situation. But there are a lot of abandoned mines in that area of Arizona. I don't trust anyone who is affiliated with the Hollywood scene, TVs, movies, music, news. Hmm. Well, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one, Reichardt. I don't I don't agree with anybody, especially when they start putting their political views out there. Hey, I have a platform. I should be able to say whatever I want. Yeah, you have the right to say whatever you want. I have the right to say whatever I want. So do you. We all have a right to say whatever we want. We have the Constitution. We have the Bill of Rights. As long as we still have them, we should be able to say what we want. Does it mean that I should change my political views based on whatever Matthew McConaughey says? Right, all right, all right. I mean, I should listen to him. Doesn't mean I should change my political views on it, or my view of the world based on what him or Matthew Broderick has to say, or any other A list or D list celebrity. But to your point, though, Riker, I don't, I agree with you on that one. Mel, they were one of four. So, all right, I already have this in my notes. Gotta find it. 1 second. Y'all would love these, because all of these right here, these are all trivia notes. There it is, right there. I see it. I got my fat fingers to get down to it. Okay, so the ransom letter, the one that they're actually calling the real ransom letter, and the three subsequent letters that was from somebody looking for a Bitcoin to turn in the other ones. These are the following places, outlets where the ransom letters and the ransom letter and those other three. Now, not counting, so exclude the fake one. The fake one didn't go, and this is how they kind of tipped off too, that letter was fake, because it didn't go to the other outlets. TMZ, Fox, Channel 3, ABC, and an Associated Press. Those are the four outlets that received the real ransom letter, if it's real, and the three subsequent letters about the fake, give me a Bitcoin, I'll turn in the other person. So TMZ, why TMZ? We don't know. I don't trust them. No, I think it's ridiculous. Look, tomorrow afternoon, this is a hypothetical situation. Let's say tomorrow afternoon, I go to Francie's house and I decide that I'm going to kidnap Francie and take her on a Caribbean trip, and we're gonna, sip, Mai Tais on the beach in the Caribbean. But while I've got her there enjoying this trip, I'm going to send a letter, demanding a ransom for Francie for her safe return. Okay, now Francie's going to enjoy the crap out of that vacation, but her family is going to go, "Oh my God, a ransom demand! Why would I send that ransom demand not to the family, but to the media?" What is the media going to do? Is TMZ or Fox or ABC, are they going to then have the phone number to call Francie's family? Why would you send it to the media? This is one of the biggest red flags that started off when they said that Nancy Guthrie was kidnapped for ransom. I was like, why would you send it to the media? The ransom demand. Every famous ransom letter either is a piece of paper with little pieces of letters cut out and glued to it saying, "Give me X amount of money," or whatever, and drop it in a park in a trash can, whatever. All that the memes you see from Hollywood. But why would you? They had direct contact with the family. The people were supposed to pay it. Why would you reach out to the media and tell them, "I want this much money"? I mean, the Bitcoin, yeah. I mean, it's today's technology. You don't have to have them put it in cash with a die pack and drop it in a trash can someplace. Yeah, so yeah, use technology. Kidnappers advance. Great. They don't have to cut letters out of magazines. Maybe because they couldn't find magazines because they're getting farther and farther, few of them out there. Francie accepts. Francie accepts me kidnapping her and taking her to the Caribbean to sip Mai Tais and pina coladas with big grains of salt. You would have grains of salt on not on that. You'd have it on a pina colada, no, or whatever. Yeah, put big grains of salt on something. In Office Space, where he told them, "All right, I'm going to take my money orders to a competing resort, Milton. I'm going to. I asked for a Mai Tai. No, yeah, it was a Mai Tai with no salt, no salt." But that was a hypothetical situation. Why would you do that? What are you hoping to accomplish? Are you hoping that media outlet is going to take it seriously and not just chuck it in the trash like everything else, and then say, "Oh, this must be real"? Margarita. As a rule, ransom letters are sent to the family of the kidnapped person, right? I mean, if you're hoping to get money, it would help. You would think, I'm not gonna kidnap Francie and take her to the to a nice warm tropical island someplace and send a letter to the hardware store and say, Francie, she's been in here. She bought plant sticks last week to feed her indoor plants. Yeah, you send that letter to her family. Doesn't make sense. That's why I think the entire ransom thing was an afterthought and that it's not real. So that if the ransom, wasn't real, what is the situation? Was it a robbery gone wrong? That you would think that would be the next, most likely. All right. If I'm going to rob Nancy Guthrie's home, I'll tell you one thing I don't do. I don't show up with a backpack that is already filled, like overfilled, full of stuff. Because if you see in the video, that backpack is packed. It is full. Why would you show up to kidnap someone or to show up to rob a home with a backpack? The idea of robbing the house is if you taking a backpack is having some place to put the goods. So what could be in the backpack? If, again, if you're using it for ransom, if it was part of the ransom was real, and it is real all along. Well, in that situation, maybe what's in the backpack is like, I don't know, a big snuggie, one of those snuggies you see on infomercials, people wearing, when they're lounging on a couch to keep her warm. You're getting her out of bed. You're not going to allow for the time for her to change out of her night clothes, and you have her put on a giant snuggie that would keep her warm, and you can get her out of the home with that. Maybe that's what's in the backpack. I mean, I'm speculating here. I can't prove any of this, but let's say the robbery isn't real because the backpack's not real. The third option is the person showed up there to kidnap someone who they thought was going to be someone else, maybe Savannah or Nikki or someone else altogether. Or maybe they got the wrong goddamn house to begin with. Maybe they were there after someone else, and then they showed up, and oh my God, I broke in, I did all this, and I got an 84-year-old woman. Shit. Now what? Maybe the idea was to take someone and kill them, execute them somewhere for the cartel because the cartel wanted them to. You could have done it right there in the house. Why take them someplace? Why bring a giant backpack? And before I forget, one last little thing about the person. I'm going to add this to the stream. So don't go anywhere. If the screen goes blank here, I want to add a picture because I want to point something out to everyone. I don't know if I can. Let's see. No. Cancel. All right. I have this photo saved on my computer. And I don't want that because that's a fundraiser. Why is it a fundraiser with the FBI? This is what sucks about media, man, is everything's behind a damn paywall. I understand more and more why people are pissed every time. Well, I don't know whose Instagram this is. Don't care. All right. Megan. All right. So, screen. I don't know whose Instagram this is. So, if this is someone you know, great. All the power to them. I just want to show the photograph. All right. So you see, this is the alleged kidnapper at the front door of Nancy Guthrie's home. Now he's wearing black latex gloves. You can wear the dark gloves. You can see them down by the waistband. All right. In the middle of his hip, between his left and right hip, he has what's called it's a one size fits all kind of, it's universal is what it's actually called, a universal gun holster in the middle of his waist, directly above where the zipper area would be and the man parts of the individual. Okay, that is where the actual gun is in the holster. When was the last time you saw anyone carry a gun in that location? Obviously, this individual is not planning on running anywhere because it would be flappy, flap, 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 flap with that hard gun right into the man parts. All right. Additionally, the gun holster itself, these universal gun holsters, they're made out of canvas, and sometimes the black darker area of it may be reinforced with leather, but they're a universal gun holster that fits many different types of guns and revolvers and pistols and stuff, but they don't fit anything well. And so the placement of the gun, the universal gun holster itself, I think that is a complete dead end. Don't chase that down. If you see that or hear that from someone, all we're going to do and find out from that information is this individual obviously doesn't carry a gun very often, if ever. So they're obviously, I would say, a rookie. They're just not familiar with carrying a gun in the first place because not on the hip, left or right, not on the back, not in the waist, a waistband gun, but that gun itself is going to go flappy flappy into the male parts over and over again as they move. Running would be even more painful. Now this is how does it attach? It attaches to an actual belt. So there's not like a clip, or a metal spring that's going to go behind it. I get rid of that stupid picture. So that there's an actual loop where the belt goes through, all right, and then buckle has got to be right behind where that holster is in the middle, and so that thing is going to go like this as they walk or when they try to run or try to do anything fast. That thing is going to flap up and down like that. If you're a male and you're listening to this, you're going to do everything in your power in your life to never cause any kind of pain in that area. So, again, a novice is the best way I can put it because of the holster and the location of it. Nobody carries a gun right there. I showed that picture to like multiple people, friends of mine, and I wouldn't say that we are gun nuts. We are definitely Second Amendment protectors, and we all own multiple firearms, pistols, rifles, blah, 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 down the line. But we would never carry a gun in that area. Hip, left or right, depending upon which is your dominant hand, or both, if you're an old gunslinger for the Old West, or back, in the pants, clipped onto there, or in the front at the belt, hidden inside your pants itself, but not on the outside. So maybe he just got out of a car. Rick 2 Z5E. Yeah, I've gotten out of a lot of cars in my lifetime, Rick 2, but I've never placed a gun in that area. Immediately, if you're gonna want to put it someplace where you have access to it, obviously front, sides, whatever. I guess you can have access to it, but with like a basic holster that would clip onto the belt loop or whatever, you'd still have better access to it, and it wouldn't be in your way as you try to work and kidnap an 84-year-old woman either. Nor would you want to go with such a basic holster. So, yeah, maybe they got out of a car and they just go like, "Oh, I'll put it in here." But that picture that we seen there, that is of the individual that came to the door, then they walked away from the door, and they bent over to actually pull the flowers. And when they bend over to pick up the flowers, you see the gun go like this. And then as soon as they bent back up after pulling the flowers, boom, the weapon right into the male parts. How many times do you need to be warned? Ow. Okay, move that over to my left. When you bent over, that's the first thing. They're like, I'm not putting it there. Move it. I mean, just a little bit left or right would have worked. And if you look at the way that it's situated and the opening of it, it definitely looks like the individual is right hand dominant because of the way that the grip is. If they were left hand dominant, it would be this way as opposed to being this way. So the right hand dominant. It's the way it looks. Now, I'm a basic moron. I'll admit that. But I can look at a picture, and determine, okay, their wallet is in the right hand, rear pocket. The pistol grip is this way. I can then determine between this and this, and the way that the backpack is on and strapped up, you can tell that the person is more right hand dominant than left hand. But again, they could be ambidextrous. That is an option. But that's such a small percentage of most society that, again, if they are ambidextrous, why would you put it in the middle? The whole thing doesn't make sense to me. It just screams at somebody who's not familiar with or carries a gun very often, if ever. You find it absolutely fascinating how the Second Amendment has been redesigned to meet the needs of the individual Americans? I don't think so. I think the Second Amendment is pretty much, exactly what it was meant to, to be. The right to bear arms to stop a tyrannical, government from overrunning us, and the need for it, and have an arm, be able to put together an armed militia to stop a tyrannical government. Because you have to understand how the founding fathers looked at the world and where we all came from, and in a lot of aspects, even today, it's even more needed than it was before. We have no idea what's going to happen, in 10 years from now. I can guarantee one thing. If you, and I hate to bring politics into a lot of this, but if one side keeps on smashing the other one on the head and steamrolling them over with their policies and what they want, that party is eventually going to get back into power, and they're going to do it back onto the other side again. That's just the way it's going to be, because we don't have kings in this country. We don't have one person that's going to be president forever. It's going to flip. And eventually, when it does, if they keep on doing this and they keep on treating them one way, they're going to come back and do it the other way to them. Now, with that said, you need protection as a society from the overreachings of the government upon you. That's my belief, my political views. I could be completely wrong. You guys can take that for a grain of salt. Click the unsubscribe button, leave me hate mail, send me a bomb threat, do whatever you got to do. But that's just my view. My sister is amphibious. Good morning, Susan. Stop the man parts. Too funny. Yeah, trying to keep it as much PG rated, as I can for YouTube. I've gotten in a lot of trouble in the last 2 years for using the RAPE word on YouTube when describing criminal offenses by criminals, using the word MURDER. Yeah, and describing certain things that people have done with their male parts in crimes. We all have the right to say whatever we want, but you have to remember that YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, these platforms, Your rights and everything else does not stand. They are privately owned or traded companies. This is not the town square, even though we all want it to be. And even Elon has now realized that you can't let every Nazi on your platform and scream whatever they want. Even he has to, he has realized that now, that he has to put some controls in place. But individual Americans have the right to bear arms for self-protection. It's not the meaning of the amendment. True. All driving towards the same goal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up today's page 2 news. I'm going to put trivia night's information here in the comments section for those who may miss it later on and watch this later on. There you go. That is trivia night. Subject matters on Robert Hansen. Tomorrow. That is tomorrow. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Unless you all unsubscribed or are sending me bomb threats right now. If you do send me bomb threats, if you could please do that to the following email address: 411nowbusiness@gmail.com. Please send all your death threats and bomb threats to that email address so I can more readily share them with the ATF and the FBI. I would appreciate that. Look, people do whatever the hell they want. Anyways, they sit behind these keyboards and they feel like there's no repercussions for what I do. So, in the meantime, everyone, you have a great day and you stay safe out there. And don't forget, as Purple likes to remind us all, you never know who's going to be standing next to you next, and you never know who's going to be knocking at your door. Bye.